background, right? Welcome, everyone, to the regular meeting of the City Council for Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. I'll request the City Clerk to call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Kurtz.
Here.
Councilmember Bushy.
Here.
Councilmember Hill.
Here.
Councilmember Yeren Scalati. She's not on right now, and I will indicate in the minutes when she does arrive. Mayor Kate.
Present. Thank you. So nice to see all of you. Welcome to the first meeting of 2022. Present-day San Rafael is located in the traditional lands of the coastal Miwok people, and we recognize that their history is here as well as those who still reside here. So if you're new to a council meeting, we like to have a land acknowledgement that I just gave, and we like to thank the staff of whose faces you see on the screen. We'd love to be in person, but until then, we enjoy seeing each other in little tiny squares and thanking all the professionals that help our city to run so beautifully and smoothly every day. So 2022, well, due to Omicron, it's starting off, I don't know about you, a little quieter and slower than we all wanted. So I wanted to raise up some hope for a good year by sharing the words of Martin Luther King Jr., whom we honored yesterday with his holiday. In April 1963, King was jailed in Birmingham, Alabama, after he defied state court injunction and led a march of Black protesters without a permit. He wrote this incredible letter called Letter from Birmingham Jail. A lot of good stuff in there. And you'll see it continues to resonate today. In his letter, he wrote, and this is a sentence I wanted to share tonight, quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." I wanted to share this segment because I love that mutuality of our community. And everyone on this screen, at the council staff, we all understand that we are in this together. We say that a lot, but that's what that means. It's a mutuality of the work that we do. And I look forward to the continued partnership and collaboration with our residents and those who care deeply about San Rafael, because we are in it together and it's part of that mutuality. So if you're watching tonight or if you're watching this recording later, it is because you care about our city. And we welcome you, we welcome your input, and we're glad for your virtual presence. Thank you for tuning in. So with those uplifting words of Martin Luther King Jr., I will now turn it over to the city clerk, who'll share how the public can participate in tonight's meeting.
Thanks, Mayor Kate. At this time, I'd like to ask staff to turn their cameras off. Thank you. Before we begin, we would like to announce that tonight's City Council meeting will include Spanish language simultaneous interpretation provided by qualified interpreters on the Spanish Zoom channel, now through the completion of agenda item 6A. You can join the Spanish channel by clicking on the interpretation icon in Zoom on the Zoom toolbar. It looks like a globe. We have posted a link to the Zoom meeting in the description of the video on YouTube. As a reminder, we ask that everyone participating tonight please speak slowly to allow our interpreter to effectively express your comments. And now I'll invite Pablo.
Muy bien, antes de comenzar, nos gustaría anunciar que la reunión del ayuntamiento de esta noche incluirá interpretación simultánea en español proporcionada por intérpretes calificados en el canal de Zoom. Desde ahora hasta la compleción del punto 6A de la agenda. Puede usted unirse al canal de español haciendo clic en el icono de interpretación en la barra de herramientas de Zoom, que ahora aparece un globo terráqueo. Y hemos publicado un enlace a la reunión de Zoom en la descripción del video en YouTube. Como recordatorio, pedimos que todos los participantes de esta noche hablen despacio para permitir que nuestro intérprete exprese sus comentarios de manera eficaz.
Thank you. This meeting is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube, and viewers can provide comments by telephone by calling 669-900-9128 and using the meeting ID 899-2635-9885 #, or they can comment and watch directly through Zoom using the link on the agenda. If you're commenting over the telephone, you'll need to press *9 when Mayor Kate opens the public comment period. And once you hear a notification that the host is inviting you to speak, please press *6 to unmute yourself. If you're commenting through Zoom, please use the raise hand button to let us know when you'd like to speak and wait until you've been unmuted. If you experience any technical difficulties, you can email me at city.clerk at cityofsanrafael.org. Closed captioning is available for this meeting and is accessible by selecting the drop-down next to the red live button in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, and then selecting view stream on custom streaming service. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk, and thank you, Pablo, for interpreting this evening. The first item on our agenda is open time for public expression. This is anything that is not on tonight's agenda. City Clerk, can you help us with this?
Yes, thank you. And as I just mentioned, if you're calling in, you'll need to press *9. And if you're watching through Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature. And I do have one public comment, so I'll invite my timer. And I will just remind everyone to please speak slowly for our interpreters, and also let you know that each speaker will have 2 minutes and they will be muted once time has elapsed. Perfect.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We sure can. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Lori. First of all, happy New Year to everybody, and hopefully it will be a much happier year. I wanted to ask a question knowing that I won't receive an answer this evening, but I still wanted to ask the question. On the May 3rd council meeting, the topic was 3rd Street, and Councilmember Lawrence Gelati, and I never know how to say her name, but I love her, asked some really great questions, and Rafat had said that he was going to answer those questions and get back to her, and it's been 8 months and I haven't seen anything. So I am curious about that. I also looked at the minutes and noticed that all it said was that Councilmember Hill excused himself because of conflict of interest, and that he left at, I think, 9:30 and returned at 10:30. And I thought that was very odd that there were no real information there other than that. So at any rate, I would love a follow-up on what's going on with all the questions that the council member asked, because they were great questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Lori. And as you correctly pointed out, we won't answer it this evening, but I will ask staff to follow up with you directly. I think we have your contact info, and to go through the questions and any other ones you might have about that meeting. So thank you.
I see no other hands raised at the moment. I'm going to give everyone, there's a hand.
Thank you, Eva Crisanti. I wanted to point out how really jarring it is to hear Mayor Collin invoke the name of Martin Luther King and quote him. It's clear to me that Mayor Collin has either not read the entirety of King's speeches, or she has totally missed its lesson, its many lessons. King was not someone who just spouted platitudes. He made demands. He was a far more radical person than white mayors like Kate Collin would like you to believe. If Martin Luther King Jr. were alive today, he would no doubt be horrified by the homeless internment camp that the city of San Rafael is running under a freeway overpass that has no bathrooms, no electricity, no showers. It's been said before, oh, it has bathrooms. For a camp that had as many as 60 tents, it has 3 porta potties. This is not acceptable during a pandemic. These are medically vulnerable individuals, majority of them Black and Latino, and you're forcing them to live under an incredibly noisy freeway overpass where they're inhaling particulate and dust. The video of what happens when it rains under this overpass is insane. A woman died there on December 9th. The city of San Rafael made no public announcement regarding its responsibility, or even noted that the death had occurred. There was a lot of dissembling about whether she had been a resident or not. This is not acceptable. I urge everyone in San Rafael to really read through Letter from Birmingham Jail, because it's not as Mayor Collin puts it. Thank you.
I see no other hands raised right now, so I'll give everyone a few more seconds. I see no further public comment.
Thank you. I will close the public comment. And next item on our agenda is the city manager's report. City Manager Schutz, nice to see you.
Thank you, Mayor Kate and City Council. In terms of announcements and updates this evening, I wanted to focus on COVID-19 and the Omicron update. The city follows the guidance of the County of Marin Public Health Department as it relates to COVID-19. And Dr. Willis and Dr. Santora have been extremely helpful over the past about 2 years now on COVID guidance. The county's website, the County Public Health, and all things related to coronavirus hasn't changed since the beginning. It's still coronavirus.marinhhs.org. And that's where I'm not going to go through a lot of the details of like exactly where testing sites are and things like that, because all of that is listed at that website. I will note, though, that the surveillance page at that website is up to date. As of yesterday, it shows 23 people hospitalized in Marin with COVID and 6 in the ICU. The 23 hospitalized is the highest point of the Omicron curve, which on that page you can see kind of has been going up since the end of December. One positive note on that data page is that the daily case rate per 100,000 people in Marin looks like it is starting to dip a little from its peak earlier this month. So that would be good news if that continues, obviously. In Dr. Willis's update last week, he included a few interesting points that I wanted to share, and that's that the county public health estimates about 15,000 people actively infected in Marin County right now. The way they got that number is they derived it from school testing, the recent return to school testing that took place, where about 38,000 people were tested over 3 days and about 4% were infected. So one big takeaway from that is that hospitalizations and deaths from Omicron are rare when you compare those things with total likely infections. And Dr. Willis stated that the data tells us 2 things. One is that Omicron is highly transmissible. And he says, quote, we should all expect we are being exposed when we are out in public, and ongoing exposure is the safest assumption. And the second is that our high vaccination rates continue to protect us. So for vaccinated and boosted people in Marin, the most common presentation, he says, is mild or no symptoms. Among those hospitalized in Marin, almost none are up to date with vaccines, which I'm assuming means fully vaccinated and boosted, and almost all are over age 60. So Dr. Willis stated that the group that he was most concerned about are older, unboosted people that are out and about in public settings. He called for closing the remaining gap by being boosted if those haven't already and if they're able to. And the final conclusion of his most recent update was that this current wave is by no means over. Vaccination and boosters, mask wearing, and staying home when sick are still the most critical actions. As far as the impact on the City of San Rafael operations, we are impacted in several ways, including employees being out sick. And although we do have employees testing positive, like probably every business and setting in Marin County and nationally, our staffing levels are adequate to support all essential services still at this time. We do have some impacts to operations, but no large-scale closures, and we continue to monitor all the departments closely. Where we can, we're trying to limit on-site staffing for at least this month. But again, we're restricted in doing so everywhere because of many of the services that we provide, such as police, fire, paramedics, childcare, winter storm prep, things that absolutely need to be taking place and are not in a traditional office setting. We're following Marin County public health guidance for school-aged childcare sites and preschool. And that guidance is different between those two because preschool-aged children are not yet eligible for vaccines. And we will need to have and are having limited closures from time to time based on positive tests of students and or childcare providers. But overall, our staffing throughout the city is impacted but stable. We are not discussing closing City Hall, for example, or other whole departments as we've seen in some other jurisdictions. And we continue to operate within the county public health guidelines. In my last COVID update at one of the December City Council meetings, I said we'd have to see what happens with the holiday case rates before we could have a better idea of returning in person to City Council meetings. And at that point said it wouldn't happen before February. And it looks like those case rates had been increasing and hospitalizations are at a higher point of this particular variant of the Omicron variant, not the highest ever, but highest of the Omicron surge. So I'll continue to work with the mayor monthly to determine when we can get back in person, because I know we all miss that and being in the council chambers. So we'll provide kind of a monthly update on when we expect to be able to be back in the council chambers. And then lastly, a final note on testing. I think many people saw the information over this weekend and today that home test kits are now available from the federal government at covidtests.gov, COVID tests, plural tests.gov. Every household in the US is eligible to receive 4 free at-home COVID-19 tests. And what we hear from the county public health channeling the federal government on this is that they are expected to arrive by mail when you go on to covidtest.gov and order them within 12 days once they are ordered. And they are the nasal swab tests that provide not immediate, but close to immediate results. County Public Health today said that regular testing of residents with symptoms and isolation for at least 5 days for those people with positive results is a critical facet of stopping the spread of COVID-19. And the recent shortage of laboratory processed PCR testing and its longer wait times for results increases the value of these free at-home tests that have recently been made available. So again, that one was that's different from I'm sure you could find that information on the county's coronavirus website as well, but it's a separate website, covidtest.gov. So thank you, Mayor Kate and City Council, and I'll turn it back to you, Mayor Kate.
Thank you, City Manager. We appreciate the update, and I actually didn't know that website address for the free test. So thank you for sharing that. We should make sure it's on our website too, in case people just didn't quite catch it. I'll invite the city clerk on to see if there are any comments from the public on the city manager's report and the Omicron report.
Thank you. To comment on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature, and if commenting by phone, you'll need to press *9. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to provide public comments, and then will be muted once time has elapsed. And as a reminder, please speak slowly to allow our interpreters to effectively express your comments. I see no hands raised as of now. I see a hand raised.
Thanks, Ava Crisanti. I appreciate the COVID update. I was surprised to receive information from the City of San Rafael in response to a CPRA request regarding COVID protocols at the internment camp you're running underneath the freeway. This is a group of medically vulnerable individuals. Many of them have been unhoused for multiple years in a row, some of them for over a decade. And this has resulted in some pretty severely compromised immune systems and, especially pulmonary conditions. There is just no explanation for why the decision was made to put these medically vulnerable individuals in a site directly underneath a freeway overpass. Especially during a pandemic, especially during a pandemic that affects pulmonary function so drastically. So basically what you're doing is you're making people more medically vulnerable by placing them here. And then on top of it, according to your own city attorney's statement, you neither required masks at the campsite nor distributed proper N95s, even as it was clear that Omicron was a much bigger problem. This leads to all sorts of other questions, like spacing between tents, issues like that. And the city really needs to move that. If they're going to maintain that camp, it needs to be moved, and it needs to be moved soon, because this is, basically all of those people should be in room key, and that would be cheaper than the lawsuits you're going to have.
I see no other hand raised. I'll give everyone a couple seconds. I see no further public comment.
Thank you. That closes that agenda item. Thank you, City Manager. The next item is Councilmember Reports, and there were the holidays since we last met, but let's go around, and if there's anything to report out, I will start with Vice Mayor Kurtz.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to everybody. Just a couple updates on Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at the website, it has been updated. A lot more information and an easier way of finding where the meetings are and minutes and videos, as well as the launch of the grant program. So if you have constituents in your area that are, needing some assistance, the grant program is something that they could look into. And I'd also like to note that and thank Chief White, who is now the lead for the operations committee for MWPA. So thank you for doing that. Point in time count. This is something we do every year. Hopefully to identify the homeless in the community has been moved. That date hasn't been rescheduled yet. So I think everyone saw that in the paper. Then we're following the county's lead for that. And also I'd like to thank the fire department, as well as community members from Age Friendly San Rafael and CERT, who were at the farmers market this past Thursday, signing up community members for Alert Marin and providing emergency information. So we hope to be back there again, maybe next month. That's it.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Bushy.
Well, Happy New Year. I have yet to attend any formal meetings in the new year, but I continue to informally work on issues related to the Central Marin Sanitation Agency, water resources, and library issues. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy New Year, everybody. I have two things to report on. One is the opening of the Southern Heights Bridge, the result of many years of work. I would not want to name anybody in particular, because there are so many people that contributed towards this. I will just say that I would express gratitude to our Public Works Department for managing this wonderful outcome. I know that the community members who were engaged over the years to make sure that the outcome was as optimal as possible deserve thanks as well. So I was there on hand with Mayor Kate to cut a ribbon and give thanks to all involved. That was a great event. The other I would call out is a water committee, part of the Marin County Council of Mayors and Council Members, was held last Thursday, the 13th, to discuss, among other things, policy, grants and funding, and exploration of ways that we can help ourselves, the municipalities of Marin. We continue to, I would characterize it as explore the problem space and start to seek out ways that we can help ourselves more formally through policy and grants and funding. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think Councilmember Bushy is on that same water.
Yes, sorry, I meant to mention, yes, Councilmember Bushy and I serve in the policy committee.
Yes, thank you both. Councilwoman Yuren Sgulati.
Yeah, good evening and Happy New Year, everybody. So I really appreciate our city manager talking about COVID, because I missed the last council meeting because I had COVID. So I cannot say I was only sick for a couple of days, but I was isolated for 10 days. So the disruption of COVID, I really recommend everybody to get a booster. It's not just that you're sick, it's also the disruption for businesses, and really is affecting everybody. So with that, I haven't attended a lot of meetings, but I did wanted to mention or congratulate our school board member, Natutu Atagaloa, who is retiring from that school board position. And I know that Councilmember Kurtz was there as well, wishing him well. And the important work that the schools are doing right now to keep all the kids in the schools. So that's my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me see, of the two meetings or formal meetings, as to Mary Beth's point, there are lots of informal meetings. Attended Marin Transit last Monday. Pretty long meeting, but the two key takeaways are their free passes that are available to families of low-income students, and it's a program that Marin Transit is exploring. It's a pilot. It's going really well. There are 200 families who are already participating, and we're continuing to remove any other challenges or barriers to participation. So I'll keep updating you on that. I think to the council, there was circulated ridership around Marin Transit, and there was a whole documentation, and any members of the public can find it on the Marin Transit website. The key takeaway on that is ridership for Marin Transit compared to October of 2020 versus 2021. So those are the data set we're looking at. It's up 65%. So we're going in the right direction. We're still not at 100% of where it was pre-COVID, but continue to bring riders back, and that is a great trend. The other meeting I wanted to report out on is a 580-101 ad hoc meeting. We had a report out on that, I think, the end of last year. They presented a timeline through 2023. When I feel like when we're talking about this project, like they're going to be breaking ground in 2025, 2026, it felt so far away. And what they've done a really nice job is looking at all of the points between now and mid of 2023, everything from stakeholder meetings to council meetings, both Larkspur and San Rafael. And that is a great document that you can find on TAM website as well. So it's an ongoing conversation, as we know, and it's nice to have that all laid out, as are many agencies that are involved in it. So I know next meeting, there'll be a lot more meetings, but it's kind of nice to start off a little bit slow for all the reasons we've been talking about. I will invite the city clerk to see if there's any members of the public that would like to comment on the city council members' reports.
So for anyone who's calling in, you will press *9, and for anyone using Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature. I see no public comments or no hands raised right now, so I'll give everyone a couple seconds. I see no public comment.
Thank you. I'll close that item and bring it to the consent calendar. Are there any items that my colleagues would like to hold from the consent calendar, which is A through K? Not seeing any items that would like to be held. I'll open the public comment and receive comment on any of the consent calendar items.
Once again, if you're calling in, you'll need to press *9. And if you're on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature. I'm seeing no hands raised. I'll give everyone a couple more seconds. I see no public comment.
Thank you. I will bring it back to the council for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I will second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Kurtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Councilmember Yvonne Scalati.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. We'll go on to our public hearing, which needs to start at 7:30, and our timing couldn't be more perfect. It's 7:31. And we say that if you've looked at the agenda, it's because that is part of the public noticing, is to not be starting an agenda item prior to when it's noticed. It's on the 2021-2022 City Council redistricting process, and I will turn it over to our city attorney, I guess, to introduce the topic. Welcome, Rob.
Before you start, I'm going to go ahead and toggle our interpreters. It's been half an hour.
Okay.
Just give me one moment.
We will sit tight.
Pablo, you'll be getting added to the Spanish channel.
Okay, we ready?
One moment. I'll let you know. Ready.
Thank you. And good evening, Mayor Kate, members of the council, members of the community. Tonight, we are having our second public hearing on the existing council districts, which were adopted in 2018. And that wasn't so long ago, although I guess it does now after we've experienced 2020 and 2021 seem like a long time ago. But the law requires us to, or the council to consider new districts now. And as in the 2017-2018 timeframe, we're very fortunate to have the assistance of the law firm Nielsen Merksommer et al. Chris Scannell, you've seen at several council meetings, but you've also seen Marguerite Leone, who's here with us tonight. Chris is not. And I'm very pleased to have Marguerite here. I'm going to introduce her right now. She will tell you what our goals are for the evening in this step of the process. And then she will also be introducing our demographic consultant, Kristen Parks, who also will be making a presentation. So Marguerite, if you're ready, you may begin. Thank you so much for being here.
And thank you so much, City Attorney. It's a pleasure to see you again and a pleasure to be with the council. We're working under a new program set up by the legislature for redistricting. This is our second public hearing. We're working towards the deadline of April 17, although our schedule gets us finished before then and well before then. And I think our local elections officials are going to be very happy about that. The goals today are similar to the first public hearing, which occurred in November, and that is to introduce the public to the topic, take input primarily on communities of interest, but also educate on other relevant criteria. And then after this evening's hearing, we should be looking at maps. So with that, I'll turn it over to the city's demographer, National Demographics Corporation. And this evening, it's represented by Kristen Parks. Thank you.
Thank you, Marguerite, and good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have a brief PowerPoint for you. It's very similar to what you have seen before. But the exciting thing that I have tonight to show you is your online mapping tool, which has been available on the redistricting website for a while now, but I just want to make sure everyone knows where to find it and how to navigate. So as we heard, the transition to districts in the city of San Rafael does feel very recent because it was. And for anyone in the public who's wondering why are we talking about districts again, the reason is because the 2020 decennial census has completed, and every time the census completes, jurisdictions with district-based elections have to take time to look at those boundaries again. So here is the current map, and I'm about to show you the numbers that go along with this map, but just reminding folks what it looks like, what neighborhoods are in each district. I know a lot of effort and work went into creating this map, and it is a great starting point for us as we move forward in 2022. So as Marguerite mentioned, there is a new state law that we're working with that requires at least 4 public hearings. It requires live interpretation, community outreach, and a redistricting website that I'll show you at the end of my presentation that will be required to be live for the next 10 years, which is 10 years until the next census and redistricting cycle. So here we are in our timeline. We actually, believe it or not, got started on this back in August. There were some delays. But we are, as Marguerite mentioned, looking to complete the process ahead of schedule, which is great. So there are 2 sets of laws that are governing this process. And the reason why we take time to review the legal criteria is that when we start looking at maps, we'll be referring back to these legal requirements and talking about whether or not the maps that have been submitted by the public and drafted by the consultants meet these requirements. So first and foremost, there's a federal requirement that each city council district should be relatively equal in population size. And what we're talking about there is we are looking for a total population deviation, which is the difference between the largest district and the smallest district of under 10%. So we'll look at that. We are going to ensure compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act. And we will avoid racial gerrymandering by considering a number of factors when looking at district boundaries and not drawing any districts based predominantly or solely on race or ethnicity. The California law, right? So that covers our federal law. The California law actually gives us, and this is a new law for this cycle of redistricting, it gives us 4 criteria that we have to look at in order of importance. So starting with the very first one, each district must be contiguous, meaning a whole complete piece with no disconnected parts. Second, and this is the one that we focus on in these first 2 public hearings, is thinking a lot about our neighborhoods and communities of interest, which again, I know that the city did as part of the districting process. So that's also something that's very important for redistricting, is to make sure that we are respecting the integrity of those communities and not dividing them across district lines whenever possible. Third, we want to create easily identifiable boundaries. So draw our district lines along major roads, waterways, or other geographic features that are recognizable to members of the public. And finally, the last criteria to consider is, to the extent possible, we want districts that are compact. And when you are looking at the shape of a district, sometimes you can get a sense of how compact it is just by looking at the shape. The state law says a compact district is one that's not avoiding including a nearby area so that it could take in a farther away area. So a district that's not compact is going to have sometimes weird shapes that snake around. So we're going to try to avoid that to the extent possible. Of course, there's always exceptions to that. And if anyone was following the County of Marin's redistricting process, they did actually look closely at the City of San Rafael's council districts as part of that. And they looked a lot at the canal area and decided that they were going to draw a district that wasn't necessarily very compact around the canal area and including it. However, it maintained a community of interest intact. And if you look at this rank ordered list, communities of interest take precedence over compactness. So there may be some trade-offs here. Of course, there are other criteria we can bring to the table, such as minimizing moving voters who are currently in a district up for election this November. We would want to minimize moving those voters into a district that may not be up for election until 2024, and other factors that may be unique to San Rafael. We can talk about those goals and traditional criteria only after we've ensured that, to the best of our ability, we are complying with state and federal law. So here are, and I know this is just like a chart of numbers, but what we're looking at are the results from the 2020 census for each of the 4 current city council districts. And the top line there is the population, the 2020 population for each district. And these are the numbers that we have to look at when we are reviewing the population counts, right? To ensure we're meeting that legal requirement of balance. So what you see here is that the largest district is by population is District 4 with over 16,000 residents. And the smallest district here is District 3 with 14,720 residents. And so if you look at the difference between the largest and the smallest, you get this total deviation of 8.53%. And I've highlighted that in green because that is within the legal threshold. So that is considered legally acceptable. Of course, less deviation is probably always better to the extent that we are protecting our neighborhoods and communities of interest. So what this means is, as we look at those district boundaries, we can say that the current boundaries meet that first requirement. But if the council wishes to consider continuing with the current boundaries for the next 10 years, we still have to go through a review of the California Fair Maps Act criteria. The other thing you'll notice here is that a little over a third of the residents of San Rafael identified as Latino in the 2020 census. And if you look at the citizen voting age population, we do have a majority Latino council district, that is District 1, with 76% of citizens of voting age identifying as Latino. So that is something that we want to be mindful of when we are considering alternatives or changes to the current map. There's a number of other data points here, again, that you can review on your own time. The only other thing I want to point out is that when we are talking about balancing the population, we are going to be looking at an ideal population number, and that's, of course, the total population of the city divided by 4. So our ideal size for a council district is 15,333 people. So here's the math for the nerds. I'm going to skip over it, but I do think it's helpful to have it there just for complete transparency to the public. And an addendum onto the legal requirements is the legal definition of community of interest. Members of the public who are following along with redistricting may be very comfortable talking about neighborhoods within San Rafael, but may not know what do we mean by community of interest. A community of interest under California law, it's defined as a geographically concentrated population that shares common interests and should be included within a single council district, so it has a chance to be represented effectively and fairly. So we're really looking for communities that do not want to be divided. They want to be represented by one council member and kept in one district. And this is a big ask that we have, of course, to the public, is to bring their testimony and let us know where the boundaries of their communities are and help us identify those communities that should be included within a single district. And then these are the prompts, of course, that can help the public to bring that testimony. You can bring that testimony to council meetings, or you can send emails or correspondence through the redistricting website. Also on the redistricting website are sort of a low-tech and a high-tech tool so that members of the public can try their hand at proposing district boundaries themselves. So these are map drawing tools. There is a printable PDF map that you can draw on either on your computer, your tablet, or actually on a piece of paper and draw population balanced districts to propose, as well as an online tool that allows you to paint your districts while looking at a number of data points and demographics. And both of these tools really empower members of the public to participate more fully in this process, rather than just reacting to whatever maps are presented or drawn by your demographer and consultants. It's really a chance for the public to be on equal footing with the consultants. And for members of the public who are interested in submitting maps, your maps will enter into the public record. They'll be posted on the website for 10 years. And provided that those maps meet the legal requirements, they can be considered by the City Council for adoption. So I'm going to jump to the website. This is just a screenshot of it. And I do encourage everyone to visit redistrictsanrafael.org. Let's see if I can navigate to that. Okay, perfect. What I want to show you very quickly, there's a lot of information here, the schedule. Once we have draft maps at our next hearing, those will be posted as well on the website. But what I want to show you is the Draw a Map page. Very quickly, you can download those printable PDF maps. They are available in English and Spanish. And there's also an optional Excel spreadsheet that you can use along with the PDF map if you want to look at some of those citizen voting age population numbers and have it be automatically calculated for you. Then we also have our online mapping tool. There is a 5-minute YouTube video where I walk through how to use the tool. It's relatively easy. However, you do need to have an account. The reason you need to have a user account is in order to submit a map for consideration, you need to make sure it's publicly available. So it needs to be published through your account. So if you click this link here, San Rafael's mapping template, it's gonna take you to a map that you can begin editing and drawing districts on this tool. And if you aren't logged in, it's going to tell you it's view only. And it's going to say you have to log in or create an account if you want to edit this map and make your own map. And you'll notice part of why I like to demo this in front of the City Council is just to show how slow it is to load, because there's a lot of data on the back end. So we definitely recommend, don't try to do this on your phone. Sit down at a computer and be patient, because it's loading all of the geographic information as well as the census data. So what you see here is you're looking at the City of San Rafael, and the pink lines here are actually the election precincts, and you see here labels showing the total population for each of these precincts. This is just to help you get started with ideas of population. But the way that this tool works is that you will select which district you want to draw from this box on the left, and you automatically see that the target number, that ideal size, is 15,333. So if we wanted to start drawing a district, I'm going to click 2. You literally will just click the paintbrush, and you can click to assign precincts to it. Or if we want to do blocks, there we go. Once you click the precinct, it will highlight the precinct in this blue color. And then if you want to draw at this smaller level, all the way, the census block level, then you can do that. For some reason, it's not actually coloring things for me here. Wonder why that is. The other thing to note about this tool that's really great is it actually helps you with the legal requirements. When you click the Analyze button, after you have actually assigned all of your all of the precincts to districts, right? You want to make sure that every precinct gets assigned to a district 1 through 4. You can click on Analyze, and it actually gives you a little summary to make sure that you completed your map, that you assigned every precinct to a district. Did you actually finish? Are your districts contiguous, free of holes, and did you meet that equal population requirement? So this tool is very helpful in that sense. If you want to share that map, we do ask that you not only publish it publicly, but that you do email us a link to it, which is share, the share button here. You can actually copy this URL, email it to us through the website, redistrictsanrafael.org, and then we will enter this into the public record for consideration. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share. I know I threw a lot of information out there, and I thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Kristen, and thank you, Marguerite. It's nice as we're kind of building the conversation. As you pointed out, we did first start talking about this in August, so many of the slides were very familiar, and I appreciate the demonstration of going through the tool, having played with it when we went through this in 2018. Let me turn to my colleagues for questions. I'll start with the Vice Mayor. Any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bushy? No, I see a head shake no. Councilmember Hill?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Urens-Gulati?
No questions. Thank you so much for the report.
Thank you. Okay, and I really like that you talked about the low tech and high tech. Oh, she went away. Okay, we will open it up. There you are. So thank you. If you stay on, because there might be additional questions, let me open it up to the public. So I'll ask the city clerk. We'll open public comment on this item.
To comment on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. If commenting by phone, please press *9. Once you hear a notification that the host is inviting you to speak, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to provide public comment and then will be muted once time has elapsed. As a reminder, we ask that everyone participating tonight, please speak slowly to allow our interpreter to effectively express your comments. Right now I see no, oh, there we go.
Ava Crisanti, I have some questions about registration for voters who are unhoused. And, you know, we know that the bulk of the homeless population in Marin County are former residents, former homeowners, former renters, and that's over 70% of the homeless population, well over 70% in the county. It may be higher for San Rafael. And it seems to me, looking at the 2016 MOU that was devised by Councilmember Bushy, current Mayor Kate Collin, and Andrew Henning, that you stripped a large number, 500 individuals, of their PO boxes at the Ritter Center, which would have been a critical part of remaining registered to vote, because you do need an address. And only approximately, if we're to take your own word for it, only approximately 150 of those mailboxes, postal boxes, were ever restored, but we don't know the length of time they were restored for. So what it looks like to me is voter disenfranchisement, and especially when we know how many elections in Marin County hinge on sometimes as few as 2 votes. It does not seem reasonable or constitutional that you haven't addressed this issue. And I think that any question of redistricting needs to address the large number of unhoused people in this county. I think we are 5 times higher than the national average for long-term homelessness in the county of Marin. And given that these people are former residents, you're essentially disenfranchising the most vulnerable and poorest group amongst you.
I see no other hands raised. I'll give everyone a few more seconds. I see no further public comment.
Thank you. I will close the public comment, and I'm not sure if this question is for Marguerite or for Kristen, but really about the registration of voters, because one of the data points to the public comment, the commenter, you have on that screen that has all the numbers. It's percentage of population who is voting eligible. So maybe you can just speak to how that data comes in, because there's voting eligible and then there are people who actually vote. Could you just maybe explain that to the public, how that manifests in this process?
Sure, and Marguerite can certainly speak to part of this as well, as she's been intimately involved, but we are working with different sources for the data. And it's important to point out that any information on citizenship or voter eligibility or voter registration is not actually coming from the 2020 census. That is coming from other sources. So we do an estimate. NDC in-house does a citizen voting age population estimate using data from the American Community Survey, and that is an annual survey that's done every year. We're using 2015 through 2019 data, and this is done by the Census Bureau, but it is a random sample. So NDC is calculating citizen voting age population that way, and then we're getting. You'll notice that we do have some voter registration data as well that is coming from California's statewide database that Marguerite may be able to speak to.
Thank you. Marguerite, you want to add? Yes.
Yes, if I may. A bunch of questions come up. Why are we using 2015, 2019? It is a survey, and the reason we're using it is because it's actually the most recent. The survey, contrary to the census, goes on constantly, and it comes out in 5-year increments. It builds on itself, so it's getting more and more robust. The survey replaced the long form census, and it has been ongoing, I think, since 2025, et cetera. So that's where the CVAP data comes from, citizen voting age. It's an estimate. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty robust estimate. That data is reported in geography that is slightly different from the geography that you use to do your districts. So what your demographer does is to take that data and re-aggregate it into the redistricting geography. So you have a couple of layers of estimates here. That's on eligible voters. It's not just San Rafael, everybody in the United States uses this data. But then California and San Rafael has some more specific data, and that is estimates that are actually counts of registration. And that comes from the California statewide database. It is based on a different standard. In other words, the eligible voter standard is based on a survey that you answer yourself. The registration data, for example, for Spanish surname people is based on looking at the last name. And so all of us know that there's error there because there are people that are married and are not Latino, people that are Latino that have a different last name. And then there are crossover last names. For example, Silva. It can be Portuguese, which isn't considered Latino, or it can be Latino. So, but it is the data everybody uses. Mm-hmm. It's officially kept by the state of California, and it's updated every statewide election. So what NDC is using for your data, and it's in your data sheet, is your registration here, Kristen? No, it's not on this sheet, but it is available, and it's from November 2020. This is as current as we can get. So that's where this data comes from.
No, that's fantastic, and I think it's we appreciate all the behind the scenes and the nuances of this with the bigger picture of having districts that really represent our communities of interest. And that's the part that I heard loud and clear, and there's a lot that goes into that. Let me see if I have any additional comments from City Clerk. Can I ask for comments from my council members first, or did you want to switch?
I was gonna switch just at the half an hour mark, if that's okay.
Sure. So we'd like to switch right now?
Yes.
Okay. When she has completed that, I will call on each of my council members for any input or comments.
Charles, you should be able to toggle now. Thank you.
Thank you, City Clerk. Okay, Vice Mayor Kurtz, did you have any comments?
No, I think with all the redistricting work that's going on right now, because the school district, San Rafael School District, the county, and as well, we're all looking at our districts. So I think it's just going to be a matter of re-education that we're going to focus on with the community as well. It's going to be an important time for everyone to understand, because I think there will be shifts in some of for the county as well as for the school district too.
Thank you. No, thank you. Good insight. We're not the only ones going through this process right now. I think Kristen's probably very busy, as is Marguerite right now. Councilmember Bushy.
Oh, I just want to encourage everyone in the public listening and hearing about this to get their comments in, get their maps in, low tech, high tech. We'll take those recommendations in any form, and I'm looking forward to seeing the proposed maps at our next meeting. So, thank you. Our next public, not our next meeting, the next public hearing on this.
Right. Which is February 21st. I wrote that
February
down.
21st. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Councilwoman Lorenz Gulati.
I echo, Council Members Bushy's comments that thank you so much for the report. We encourage hearing from the community. I was encouraged just to see the county following similar maps that the ones that we have in San Rafael. So I also look forward to our next meeting. Public hearing. Thank you.
February 21st, right? Thank you.
February 21st.
Yeah. Councilmember Hill.
Yes, thank you. And thank you again for the report and the follow-up answer. I honed in on the word robust, which I think this process is. And I am encouraged that this is a part of our democracy, that we are exercising examination of how we are districted, and look forward to the process continuing. And as Councilmember Bushy indicated, I encourage the community to participate. So thank you for this public hearing.
Thank you. Thank you for excellent comments. And as was presented, there's a whole website where you can find this. You can also just go to the city website and put in redistricting in the search bar, and I know it will come up if you didn't get the address. So thank you, Kristen and Marguerite. The action for the council is to accept the report. And I'll wait for the city clerk to come on. There she is. Is there a motion to accept the report?
I move that we accept the report on the city council redistricting process.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Kurtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Councilmember Lorenz Gulati.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. Again, thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Marguerite. And thank you so much to our interpreters who were helping to provide the interpretation. And hopefully we didn't speak too quickly. If we did, we apologize, but appreciate you being a part of our meeting. So thank you. We have another agenda item, talk about switching gears from redistricting a process to something very solid and concrete, the San Quentin pump station. And I will invite Director Guerin to introduce this item. And I see that April Miller is here as well. Nice to see you both.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I am Bill Guerin with the Public Works Department. Our current pump station at San Quentin isn't as solid and concrete as we'd like it to be. So we are here tonight to give an informational item to everybody about the pump station itself and the need to replace that pump station. It serves a very important function behind Target and Home Depot and takes water away from the 580 corridor. So I've asked April Miller, the Assistant Public Works Director, to make a short presentation about the project to inform everybody what we're trying to accomplish here. And then she and I would be happy to take any questions that you have. So thank you.
I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
Okay. I think you can see my screen now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor and Council members, for having us here tonight to talk about the San Quentin Pump Station Replacement Project. Here's a map showing the location of the San Quentin Pump Station. It's located behind Target and Home Depot in the marshland to the north there. The blue line shown around here is actually the drainage area. So the drainage area is where anywhere where stormwater hits the surface, it's conveyed through pipes and ditches and gutters and ends up going out to the pump station. I've shown here in yellow, this is actually a culvert. So the water from the west side goes underneath the highway and then enters into the pump station here. Adjacent to the north here is actually the Kerner pump station drainage area. And I point that out because there's a ditch that runs on the west side along 580 through here that is shared between the two pump stations. So the two pump stations, in some cases, when there's high storms, they actually share with their pumps to allow the water to go out to the bay. So here's a little bit closer look here. Here's the pump station on the right, and then there's an outfall pipe. So stormwater comes in through here and then enters the pump station. Here's a section just to kind of show what happens. So stormwater it's a gravity system. So by the time it gets down to the bay, the storm drain pipes are actually below sea level. So this is actually a section of the San Quentin pump station. So the stormwater actually enters in 5 feet below sea level. So the pumps are required in order to pump the stormwater up, and then there's a pressurized pipe that goes out to the bay. So the new pump station, what we're planning on doing is we're actually going to increase the pump capacity. So we're going to have 3 vertical pumps instead of 2. There's going to be an entirely new structure that's going to meet the seismic criteria, and it's going to be easier for us to maintain. We've been spending the last several years trying to get the design and regulatory permits, and we're anticipating getting those actually next month. So if all goes well, then we'll actually start construction as soon as we can so we can try to get it complete before next year's rain. So that's for funding for the San Quentin pump station. So we're estimating at about $3.2 million, plus there's contingency and construction management on top of that. So every year, the stormwater fee gets about $500,000 worth of funding towards CIP projects. So the city staff has been trying to get grant funding from FEMA and also the Urban Flood Protection Program, but we've been unsuccessful so far. Thankfully, we've received money through the American Rescue Plan Act in 2021 that could be eligible for different CIP projects, specifically infrastructure projects. And since this project checks a lot of the key focus areas that the city has identified, such as sustainability, climate change, and disasters, we feel like this would be a good project to use this type of funding. And there's a short presentation. So any questions, we're here.
Thank you, April. And I thought a key bullet point was we've tried twice to get grants towards this funding. So that's the other reason why we're bringing this forward to the council for any questions of the public. So Vice Mayor Kurtz, do you have any questions?
No, it was a really interesting project. I actually went back and looked at some of the previous capital improvement reports. Like, how long have we been talking about this? It's been a while. So I was actually, what if we don't do this work? I mean, this is one of those, I think, have to do. It's not pretty, probably won't have a ribbon cutting, although we might. But what if we don't do this?
Great question.
Yeah, so these.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, I'll go ahead. Yeah, so the pumps are at the end of their life. We are kind of putting on Band-Aids right now to fix flap gates that are out there and keep them going. Just with upgrade, the pumps will allow us to be more energy efficient. We can also, sorry. And it'll just help us to maintain it. So if we don't do it, the pumps could fail. And then, all of the burden will go to the Kerner pump station, which could also cause the Kerner pump station to fail. I know we've had a few past storms over the last couple decades where there's been power surges that have, knocked some of the pumps offline, maybe sometimes just one of the two. And it's actually caused flooding in lane 1 on eastbound 580. And also flooding over at Anderson and Bellum area. So we definitely need to have these pump stations upgraded to counter those big storms and potential power surges.
Yeah, and the pump station itself, the pumps we do maintain, and these are getting very tired. But the whole facility is at the end of its useful life as well. It's a concrete structure that vibrates during the pumping process, and it is simply getting tired and old. There's a very long pipe that goes out to the bay that is, full of leaks. The entire facility needs to be upgraded. It's our, most antique pump station, and really serves a very important purpose for San Rafael.
It was actually interesting to see that there's been consistency year after year, that it's been an important project, ranked high and unfunded. So because it's one of those that it requires a lot of funding to actually get in there and do the work. But it's not like it's been a project that's jumped around. It's always been there at the top. So, thank you.
Good question. Councilmember Bushy.
Bill or April, could you remind me what the storm water fee is and how it's set, and why it's not sufficient to fund this? I mean, it's fortuitous from the pump station's perspective that we have the pandemic and the ARPA funds, but if we hadn't had a pandemic, we wouldn't have funding for this. So I'm looking for non-pandemic caused funding avenues for the other pump stations and for the future. So could you talk a little bit about the stormwater fee?
I don't have the fee with me, council member. I'm very sorry about that, but I will talk about our infrastructure in general. And the stormwater fees that are collected in San Rafael are simply not adequate to keep up with the aging infrastructure in San Rafael. We have a lot of corrugated metal pipe that are, piping water through the hills of San Rafael that are all, kind of an age where they're starting to all deteriorate at the same time. We've been sleeving them and replacing them and putting plastic instead of the corrugated metal pipe throughout the city. There's other aspects of our stormwater system that are quite tired and do need to be upgraded. We have explored, the idea of increasing the storm water fee and have not, got that to a place where we are in a position to bring it to the council, obviously, but it is something we are looking at because of the aging infrastructure in San Rafael.
Well, if I can be of any assistance in analyzing what the fee needs to be and persuading whoever it is that needs to be persuaded that we need to bring this fee in alignment with the costs necessary to provide these services, or we're risking catastrophic failure. and financial impacts as well if we don't think about this ahead of time. We don't want to be depending on a pandemic to bail us out every time. So I'm happy to help in any way.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Yeah, one thing to add, it actually needs to go to the voters. So there needs to be a 2/3 vote in order for us to increase the stormwater tax. So that is something that we could explore in the future.
Well, then that's what we need to do. If the voters decide not to fund it, that's one thing. But if we don't ask them and explain to them the consequences of not funding it, then that's on us. So.
Thank you. Great question. Councilmember Hill.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, April, for the presentation. I had two questions. One is, what is currently involved, say, during storm events for public works personnel to, say, go out and is there a manual intervention involved to make sure that the pumps are operating correctly? It seems like as we're approaching end of life, it's requiring more and more manual intervention. Can you characterize that?
Yeah, I think very much, Councilmember. Our staff obviously is in and around the city during major storm events. Whenever there's high tides and a large amount of water, we spend a lot of time throughout the city. But a large part of what we do is maintain the pumps. We check the pumps. We maintain the water levels. We ensure that they're functioning properly. We have SCADA systems in some of our pumps and not in others. And we're trying to bring all of our pumps up to a certain level where we can remotely monitor and manage the pumps. But a lot of what we do is actually physically go to the pump stations. They tend to have problems during storms. Large objects go through the storm system and clog the pipes. And then the pump stops running. They have to be, in some cases, the pump has to be, pulled out and cleaned during a storm event, which is really, a challenge for our staff and the contractors that we hire to help us do that. So there's a lot involved with maintaining the pumps during storm events. And a lot of it is just, actively monitoring what's happening at each of the pump stations to ensure that they're running properly and there are no, power surges or something else that would cause the pumps to go offline.
Great, thank you for that characterization. And my follow-up question is going to be somewhat of a leading question, but based on that answer, it sounds like obviously there's just one pump. There are other pumps that need to be, if not refurbished, rebuilt or built. That during storm events, it sounds like we'd be in a better position for personnel to be focused on the rest of the city rather than kind of going from pump to pump and making sure that they're operating. Would you say that puts us in a better position for response during storm events? Yeah,
this would be a fully modern system that would be automated and much easier to manage than the current facility that we have. So you're absolutely right, Councilmember.
Great, thanks. Hopefully I'm not right. I'm just trying to be a leading question. So thank you for
I think it's important to have the context because it's part of a greater system. That's really what you're getting at. Councilmember Micah.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kate. And thank you so much for the presentation. As it's been said, this is not one of the sexy projects, but the ones that we definitely need. So I guess my question is around the what?
It is to us.
Oh, of course it is. So my question is, you mentioned that it will take 6 to 8 months to build. So can you talk a little bit about how it's going to impact the neighborhood?
Yeah, we can actually leave the existing pump station in place and functioning until we get the new one up and running. There's not really anything that would directly affect the neighbors besides some noise during the daytime hours while we're constructing. And then we have a bunch of environmental permits where we have to comply with different regulations for that too.
Yeah, it's literally behind the Target store, down in a kind of a ravine area that is partially wetland and partially just a storage area for water. So it really wouldn't directly impact the community. And as April said, we can continue to function while we build a new station.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's going to be, definitely necessary. So, and it's great that we can have that extra funds. When you mentioned that you get the storm water and sometimes the pipes gets, obstructed by big objects, you don't have any filtering for the water from the rain before it goes into the bay. Is it a filtration or is it just pumping directly?
There's a couple things that do happen. There's something called a trash rack in front of all of our major stormwater inlets, which is simply a bunch of bars that catch the largest objects that come through. A lot of them are tree branches and things like that. If they went into the system, they would clog it up. But in fact, when they hit the trash rack, they often clog up as well. So back to Council Member Hill's point, our staff has to monitor the trash racks as well, because if they get clogged with debris, much like your rain leader off your roof, if a few leaves get in the front of it and all of a sudden your roof drain isn't working anymore. So we manage those things during storms as well. But some objects do get through the trash racks. They're kind of gross in the sense that they're fairly large spaces in between, because we do want the water to continue to flow. And often, or not often, but sometimes, as sleeping bags or mattresses or things like that do actually get into the system and clog up the pipes themselves, the pumps themselves. So we do that. There's also a requirement that we're just beginning to implement now to manage to remove everything over 5 millimeters before it gets into the bay. And so one of the things we're trying to do at our new pump stations, and we're actually looking for Caltrans, I think you might have read this in our report, to fund a trash capture device that would actually use an inline system that removes debris from the water coming into the pump station before it gets pumped into the bay. And that would take a lot of material out of the flow that goes to the bay itself.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Because we know, when it rains, everything that goes into the bay. So that's great. No, I have a full support for this project. So thank you very much. And of course, very sexy. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent questions. I just have one last one. And how does the sea level rise and all the planning that we're doing around that intersect with this pump station? Because that is an area that is wetlands, and we might do mitigation or adaptation out there. So could you speak to that?
Yeah, I think very, very much it is part of our sea level rise adaptation. As sea level rise occurs, more and more water is going to enter the city, and a lot of the city is below the actual water, the sea level outside. So the pump stations are really important to get the water that does come into the city from the hills, but potentially from a king tide kind of event, which happened in October last year, excuse me, and pump it back out into the bay. So it's very important that we have a robust pump system to remove the water that does get, sort of behind the levees, whether from, the hills or from sea level rise, and pump it back out into the bay.
And that's really helpful. I mean, this pump was built in 1972. So 50 years ago, we're going to want this one, assuming that we keep proceeding forward, to last another 50 years. So as we know that the bay might be changing levels. So sounds like that's all been considered and will be a part of the construction.
Yeah, the system is more robust than the existing pump system. The system we're proposing.
Yeah, right. You're not building one that's 1975. Yeah. Okay. No, thank you. Okay. Let me invite the city clerk on for a public comment on this item before we bring it back to the council.
To comment on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature, or to comment over the telephone, you'll need to press *9. We will have 2 minutes. And once your 2 minutes is up, we will be muting you once the time is up. I see no hands raised. I see no public comment.
Thank you. I will close the public comment and bring it back. And this is an informational item. We felt it was important to, when you're looking at price tags like this, that we could have a conversation. You can get hear the concerns of the council and get the questions answered. So when it comes forward again, we won't all be surprised. So unless there are further questions from my colleagues, I would entertain a motion. It's accepting the report. And you can read it out, whoever makes the motion.
I'm happy to make the motion. If I can, let me just find it. All right. Like to recommend action, accept informational report regarding the San Quentin Pump Station reconstruction project and funding.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Kurtz,
Aye.
Councilmember Bushy,
Aye.
Councilmember Hill,
Aye.
Councilmember Yerens Galati,
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, April, for coming and presenting this. I know we'll see it again on our agenda probably in the next couple months. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. So the final part of our meeting tonight is the San Rafael Successor Agency. We have both, well, we only have, I guess, a consent calendar. Wait, did I get that right? Yes, I did. So are there any items to be held from the consent calendar? No, not seen any. I will open this up, Madam City Clerk, to any public comment on the San Rafael Successor Agency consent calendar.
Once again, if you're calling in, you'll press *9, or you can use the raise hand feature on Zoom. I don't see any hands raised. I see no public comment.
Thank you. I will close the public comment and bring it back for a motion.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar.
Thank you. Is there a second? Move
Second.
it. Yep. Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Kurtz,
Aye.
Member Bushy,
Aye.
Member Hill,
Aye.
Member Yerens Galati,
Aye.
Chair Kate.
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. And I don't think all of our meetings are going to be this short. So if there's any staff members around, they can put their cameras back on so we can say Happy New Year. And it is always kind of nice to ease back into 2022. So Happy New Year to you all. Again, grateful for all the work that you do. This meeting is adjourned and we will see you in February. Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Everyone.
Good night.